Hi, I'm Adam, software engineer at Rivet Games. Today I'm going to show you some of the features of the Island Line Class 484 for Train Sim World 2. So to start with, something interesting about the 484's doors is that you have to use these keys, just like the driver would in real life, to open up the door. You can't just click on it, you've got to click, put your key in, and turn it to get into the door. Then once you're in, to close the door, you need to click this button here, and that will use the air to close it pneumatically. That's the same for the release on the inside. If, however, you wanted to open it manually, we have two panels here, which if you isolate this one, this is the emergency egress isolation cock, and that will isolate the pneumatic system from this door. And then you use the EDR, which is emergency door release, set that, and that will allow you to manually control the door. It'll have a slightly different noise as you're not using the air anymore, and it's just a cool little feature that we've added in. So this is the blueprint functionality for these isolation cocks. Basically what's happening here is that it's setting a Boolean value whether or not it should be in manual mode or automatic or like pneumatic mode, and it also sets a constraint on whether or not you're able to interact with the other lever, just to make sure that you don't do it in the wrong order and screw everything up. So showing that in the game, at this point here, I can only interact with the EDR and I cannot hover over and control this one until I've moved this back to normal, and then I'm able to control either of them. If I move that back to normal, I then can't control this. And that's essentially what's going on in this blueprint, is it's setting the input enabled, so it's whether or not I'm able to click on the EDR. And there's one of these for the left and the right, so it's separate. So if you want to do the right door, you'd use these two, or that would be the left door. You'd use these two. And then if you want to do the right door, you'd use those two. Once you've set the cab to work by turning the key from anything other than off, this light will show up. This is the interlock light. And basically what that's telling you is that all the doors are closed and you're able to gain power. It doesn't necessarily mean that your traction isn't locked, and you can see that through the TSW HUD, but it means that all of the doors are closed on this vehicle. If you were to then open a door, for example, so if I am to open up one of these doors, you'll notice that this light goes out, and that's to tell you, don't move now, you can't drive. It'll be traction locked, and that's because one or more of the doors are open. And then once you close it, the moment that door is closed, it will light back up again to say that you're able to get going. In a similar vein to that, there's also this light here, which will light up when all of the doors are closed on this side. So if I were to do that again, if I open up this door, you'll see that this light will go out when one of the doors is open, to show that this side something is open. However, on the opposite side, it's still illuminated because all of the doors on this side are in fact closed. In order to open and close the doors on this train, you need to first put the key switch in and turn it. In this, it's already turned on, so you can see the key switch indicator is red. So this would mean that you'd be able to operate the doors by pushing one of these buttons. So I've hit the release button. That's going to open up all the doors along the side of the train. You'll see this light goes out to indicate that some of the doors are open, and then you would be able to close them with that button, and that will close all of the doors for you on the side of the train. If you haven't got the key switch turned on, so if I flick that like that, then these buttons are not going to work, and it's this key switch that will also allow you to operate this side as well, so that won't impact anything until you've turned the key switch. It's not necessary to have this key in when you're driving the train. This is just for controlling the doors. This is one of the little loops for a check to make sure that it doesn't turn on the incorrect light when the doors are opening and closing. So it has an array, this is the little array for all the left-hand side doors. And basically what I do for the guard panel logic is I remove the door that has had the guard panel key turned from the array. And so when it does a loop to check if it's in the array, it will know whether or not it is the guard door that has been changed or not. so it knows whether or not to turn the light on or to ignore it opening and closing the door. So that's how that works. And then obviously once you turn the key back the other way, it will add it back into the array just like a normal passenger door. Because all the passenger doors, what happens when you hit the door release button is it will loop through every single door on that side in the array and open them. There's also like this light here. So this light is the safety system isolated. So it's essentially telling you that one or more of your safety systems are currently isolated. By default in Train Sim World, the safety systems will be isolated, so this light will be on. In order to get that light to go away, you would need to use this isolation panel, which you can go to like that, or you can get via one of the special cameras. And if you make sure that you've cut in the AWS, the DSD, the DRA, and the TPWS, once you've done that, go back to your cab, you'll see that this light has gone out, and that indicates that all of your safety systems are now functional and you're sort of good to drive the train like you would in real life. This train has automatic sanding, and what that means is although there's sort of sand icons here, there's no actual button for you to press to apply the sand. It's all done via the wheel slip protection. You'll see that kick in with this light here, and you'll also see the sand light indicate when it is currently sanding. Again, that's all done automatically, so you don't need to worry anything about it. If you were, however, to somehow use lots of sand, the low sand indicator would come on as you're running out, and then if you did completely run out of sand, this red light would illuminate. It's very difficult to do, but it would happen. To couple up two trains, you would simply slowly drive it forward. It's an automatic coupler that is the 484 has. Once it's coupled, you'll see that this blue light illuminates in the opposite cab to show you that it's been a successful couple. If you want to then uncouple, you just have to press and hold the uncouple button. If you hold that down for about 5 seconds, then you'll see on the other train the red light will illuminate for 10 seconds. This is where you would then put it in reverse and drive away. If you wanted to then couple again, you would use the couple button to re-enable the automatic coupler. So if you drive forward, after a while it will re-enable anyway. So you press and hold the uncouple for 5 seconds. That will illuminate this for 10 seconds. If you then wanted to re-enable the automatic coupler, you just press that and you're back to being coupled up again. So as long as that blue light's on, you know you're coupled to the unit in front. I added in a little animation for the key turning, because this is the door going into the driver's cab from the interior. And obviously in order to get into there, you'd need to have a key. And so I actually animated that so it turns the key to let you in. And the neat little feature about it is that the key, it doesn't play in reverse. So when I close it, you don't see the key playing in that way around. So it's only when you're opening the door that it actually puts the key in. Just a little feature, but I thought it was pretty cool. Now I'll show off the guard panel functionality. So you should be able to, with the 484, to follow what the guard would do in real life. So you can unlock the specific guard panel that you want to use and then open the panel. Then you'll see inside of here, you've to turn this key switch. Once you've done that, you've activated this guard panel and allocated this door as the guard's door currently. And you'll know that it's active because the guard's open button will illuminate. So the first thing that you would do is push the guard's open button. I'll go into full screen for this. And that will open just the guard's door. You then have a look out and do your checks. And then you would push the release button. And that will release all of the doors down this side of the train. Then all the passengers would board. Once everybody's got on the train and you're ready to get going, you would have another check, make sure everything's okay, and then hit the close button. All these doors will now close, excluding the guard's door. Once they're all closed, this button will illuminate to let you know that everything else is closed. You then close the guard's door, and then you lock up. That's you good to go. So this is the gangway doors between two of the units. By default, it's going to be locked, so you're not able to actually open it. In order to get through the gangway into the other unit, you'd need to press this door release button. It'll begin flashing, and for 30 seconds, you'll be able to open this door. So it'll be from locked to closed. Basically, you've unlocked the door. You can then open up this door, and it's also sent a message to the other unit to tell it to unlock this door, so you can get through this one as well. You then should close the doors behind you. They'll lock behind you, and then you're good to go. If you did end up getting trapped in between them, so if you decided you were going to open up that door, go in here and close it, and you're stuck, or if I close that, so both doors here are locked, you can still escape if you click on the door handle. It'll always let you out if you click on the door handle on the inside. So the way that the sparking actually works in this is that I've put in a different simulation component for each of the couplers. So each bogey has 2 current collectors, one on either side. So that's for the contact shoe. Sorry. So yeah, each bogey has 2 contact shoes, and so that means you've got 4 contact shoes total, and each one of them will either collect power or not be collecting power. And that's how it's then able to know whether or not it should spark. So I'll show off in the blueprint the thing for that, how it decides whether or not it should do a spark. There's a good spot for it right here where it changes, because the sparking happens when it goes from not collecting current to collecting current. So as it comes along this third rail, it'll be collecting from here, then it'll lose power, and then as it comes across, and especially in the rain, it causes like more of a contact, and so that's where you get the sparking. Although it does happen in dry conditions, just more rarely. So you see the little sparking effect. In the wet it happens more often than not. In the dry it'll happen a lot less, but it's at those kind of contact points that it'll sort of do the spark. For the sparking effect, this is the particle effect in the game that's set up, and it is sort of pseudo-random, where you set up an initial spawn conditions. So you've got how long is it gonna, each individual one gonna exist for. So for example here, any spark individually will be alive for between half a second and 2.5 seconds. The initial size, you can set up different parameters for that. And you set up an initial velocity. So the reason that it's set up like this is so that it fires away from where the train is moving, but it will also take into account the direction that the train is moving. So it gets its velocity from the train. So if you're traveling along a lot more quickly, you'll see it sort of fire in a slightly different way than if you were going slowly. It also takes into consideration gravity. So this constant acceleration parameter, say I've got it set at -400. So that's basically it dropping. So if I were to put that to 0, it just spreads out because it's got no fall off. That just allows sort of a gravity effect. There's also an actor collision. So this is basically, it will bounce off of the floor, and it will randomly bounce a certain number of times, which is pretty cool. And you've got all sorts of things you can do in here. For example, there's also the color over time. So I've got it so that it starts out quite white and then sort of fades to orange as it cools off. But you could decide we want it to be blue or something in the end, or purple. So you've got all that kind of control with it. So it's pretty cool, pretty fun to make that kind of effect. And I'll show off the way that it decides whether or not it should spark. What happens is every time any of the individual contact shoes starts collecting current again, it will fire this function to check whether or not it should fire a spark animation. And so what it does is it has a base chance of firing a spark. At the moment it's 0.5, which means it's got a 50% chance of firing a spark for any given time this happens. We wanted it to be quite a bit higher than in real life, just so that people could see it happening. So that's why that's sort of the base chance, but it's very, very easy to change up or down however often you want it to happen. If I put it to 1, that would be a 100% chance of sparking, so it would happen every single time. Then what I do is I basically add on a modifier based on the current weather conditions. So the two weather conditions that it takes into effect is the ground snow and the wetness. So it pulls that straight from the level, and that can change over time depending on, like, if things dry up, it was wet, or it gets wetter or something, it will know that. And it has this wetness modifier, which is basically it adds this on. If it's really, really, really wet, it'll add on an extra 35% chance to fire the spark. So it's much more likely to fire a spark in the wet. And then what it does is, once you've added those chances together, it'll generate a random number between 0 and 1, check if that value that is randomly generated is less than whatever number you've got from here. And if it is, it'll fire the spark. And then the fire of the spark is literally it just telling it to fire a spark at any given location, depending on the contact shoe that was affected. That's been a quick overview of the UE4 setup for the class 484. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.